Alright, C versus Python. Which programming language should you learn first? Of course, these programming languages are often used by beginner programmers to learn how to code, and it can be kind of overwhelming if you're a self-learner. Which one should I focus on? Should I focus on Python or C? And which one, if I learned it first, would put me in best position for success? And I can say in my personal experience, I learned C first, and then I learned Python, and I can say that one pro of doing it that way is that when you learn C, you learn the foundations of programming, and so when you learn Python, it's actually a lot easier to go that way. With that said, Python is also a popular choice for beginner programmers because of its ease of use. It's really easy to pick up, and you can be really encouraged if you're learning how to code for the first time, and then you're learning Python, and Python can give you a lot of power in terms of building applications that are actually meaningful. And so a lot of people recommend Python because of that reason. Some people might say that you shouldn't learn C first because C might discourage you because it can be kind of complicated sometimes. And so it would be better if you go to Python first so that you can have a little bit of encouragement, and then when you're really all in on programming, then you can learn C. That's what some people would say. But we'll see at the end of this video which one I recommend. In this video, I'll be giving a quick overview of Python and C, and hopefully by the end of the video, you'll have a better understanding of the two, and then you will be able to make an informed decision on which programming language you should learn first. My name's Henrik, and I'm here to help you learn the software skills and tools you need to grow in your software development journey. So let's get started. By the way, if you're in the early stages of your programming journey, I've got a special gift for you. It's called my 30-day beginner coding challenge. And it's a guide that will take you from no coding experience to building your first 4 projects. And the best part is it's free. It's a free gift to you. In this coding challenge, I guide you in 30 days to build 4 programming projects, and I give you some tutorials that are in C. But of course, these projects are really generic and really beginner friendly, and so you can actually code them in different programming languages. You can still benefit from this guide because you can just take the principles that are in my challenge and then apply them to your programming language. You can find the challenge in the link in the description, and if you download it and pay attention to what it says, you'll definitely learn some fundamental programming concepts that will give you a good foundation to your software development journey. Alright, so let's go chronologically and start with C first. So C is older than Python. It was created in the 1970s by Dennis Ritchie, and it was mostly used as a higher level programming language at that time for the developers at that time. And it is still used today, and is mostly used for programming tasks that require a lot of efficiency and where speed and timing is important. And so this is often found in embedded software development. And when you need to have more direct control over your hardware, then that's when you would use C. And C is also used in universities to teach the fundamentals of programming. So it's a really good programming language if you want to have a more deeper understanding of computer architecture, stuff like the stack and the heap and memory management. And CS50, which is the Introduction to Computer Science at Harvard, is one of those classes. So in the beginning weeks, they go over C, and they actually go over Scratch. That's the first quote-unquote coding language that the students there learn first, and that's not really a serious programming language. So the first one that they really learn is C, and then towards the end of the course, they start talking about Python. So according to Harvard, you should learn C first before learning Python. I've personally used C for some drone projects that I've worked on in the past when we were doing some research with drones, and I've also used it in programming some microprocessors or microcontrollers for some electronic devices. So how does C exactly work? So first you write your code in C, and then the compiler compiles that C code into machine code, and then your machine runs the machine code, and the operating system loads the machine code into memory, and the CPU executes it. Alright, so now what is Python? So Python was created by Guido van Rossum in 1991, and it was created simply for better code readability and simplicity. And an interesting fact about Python is that the original interpreter was written in C. And in the glossary, there is a term called CPython, and CPython is basically the canonical implementation of the Python programming language. So when Python was first created, they used C to create the interpreter for Python. And so what is Python used for? It has a lot of different applications. Some of the popular ones are for web development. They also are used in the scientific community. It says here that Python is also a superb language for teaching programming, of course. And it's not mentioned here on the website, but Python is also used a lot for data science, machine learning, and also for automation and scripting. I've personally used Python in my previous company to handle user registration and configuration for one of our applications. I've also used Flask and Plotly to build a simple web application that gathered user data from sensors and plotted them real time in a graph. And the way that Python works is that first you write your Python code, and then the C Python interpreter or Python interpreter parses that Python code and converts it into bytecode. And this is not machine code, it's another type of intermediate code that is platform independent. And then the Python virtual machine, which is part of the C Python interpreter, interprets that bytecode and executes it on your machine. Alright, now I want to talk about the special relationship that Python has with C. Of course, I alluded to some of it earlier by talking about how the original Python interpreter was written in C, and so that's called C Python, and that's basically what Python is. When you say Python, you're implicitly talking about C Python, which is the canonical interpretation of Python. So there's that, and then also to me, Python is to C as C is to assembly. I think that's a good way of thinking about it. So in programming, there are different levels. And so what these levels are referring to are how close you are to the hardware. So assembly is the lowest level, and that one deals directly with the CPU registers. So in assembly, you have to be really careful how you're coding. So they built C so that you wouldn't have to worry about that. So they built C on top of assembly. No, not on top of it, but it's a higher level than assembly. And so in C, you don't have to worry about those CPU registers, but you do have to worry about memory allocation and managing your memory. And then Python is one level above that. And so in Python, you don't have to worry about that memory allocation, and it'll take care of all that memory for you. So we have these different levels, right? Assembly, C, and Python. And all of these levels are important. It depends on how close you want to get to the hardware. If you want to have more control over the hardware, then you go to assembly. But if you don't need too much control, but you want to have better readable code, you want to write code in an easier way, then you go to C. But if you don't need that much control over the hardware that C gives you, then you can code in Python because it's easier to code in. And so there's these different levels, and there are pros and cons to each level. I kind of think of it like stick shift and automatic transmission for cars. So with stick shift, you can change gears manually and you can make your car more fuel efficient if you really care about that. But if you don't care so much about fuel efficiency and you want to have a better driving experience, then you'd pick automatic transmission. And something that's really neat about these programming languages is that assembly, C, and Python, they work really well together. And so if you're coding in C and you need more control over the hardware, you can have part of your project in C, and then you can also have a part of your project in assembly. And likewise with Python, if you're coding in Python and you want more control, you want to extend that Python code into the C domain, then you can also have code in C as well. Alright, so finally, which programming language should you learn first? And I would say that you should learn C first. And that's because that was my experience. So I learned C first in university, and I had a good programming foundation, good programming background, and really understood how computers work. And then when I went to Python, it was really easy to pick up. And so that's my experience. That's what I want you to experience. And so that's why I recommend that you learn C first. And even if you learn Python first, I would still say that you need to learn C anyways, because C really forces you to understand how computers think, and it really helps you understand how programming languages work under the hood. So if you're really going to be serious at programming, you really need to learn C anyways. C is also good because it will help you customize your Python code better. If you find that your Python code isn't good enough and you need better control over the hardware, then you'll have to learn C anyways. I also say C first because, like I mentioned earlier, C came before Python, and so a lot of developers, they learn C first. The older developers, they learned C first and then they learned Python after, and then they were able to see why Python was so great, because Python was able to take care of some things that were really headaches in C. And so I think you should learn the headache way first, learn C first, learn it the hard way first, and then you can really see the beauty of Python. And if you want to see a practical example of how learning C first can really help you become a better Python programmer, you can watch my other stack versus heap video, and I go through a tutorial to show you how understanding the stack and the heap really helps you become a better Python programmer. Alright, last thing I'll say for this video is that it actually doesn't really matter which programming language you should learn first, because as your programming coach for this video, I would say that whatever programming language gets you to actually code is the most important language that you should learn first. And so if that's going to be Python, of course I prefer you learn C first, but if C is hindering you or discouraging you from actually coding some projects, then go ahead and start using Python so that you can actually start coding today. Alright, that's it for this week's video. I gave a quick overview of Python and C and gave you my recommendation for which programming language you should learn first. I also want to hear your thoughts. Which programming language do you think people should learn first? Which one did you learn first if you learned both of them? And so leave a comment in the comment section. I'd love to see where you guys are at. Alright, like I mentioned earlier, if you're just starting off in your programming journey and you don't know where to start, you can download my 30-day beginner coding challenge. And it's a 30-day guide where I teach you how to build those 4 beginner programming projects. It's really beginner friendly, and I go step by step on how to build each one and go through the tutorials that you need to build each one. So download that in the link in the description. Alright, thanks for watching this week's video. I hope it really helped you out, and if it did help you out even in the slightest bit, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And if you have any other questions, feel free to let me know in the comments section and I'll be sure to answer you there, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.